Hello and welcome back to another episode of Oh and That's a Bad Miss. Starting off, got to apologise if you hear any noise in the background. I've been waiting to record this podcast for a while, doing all my research, making all my notes, and then as soon as I start doing it, the gardeners outside have decided to start mowing the lawn. So fantastic, perfect timing for them, but I can't wait any longer. There's a lot to talk about. It's been a big 2 weeks and we're coming into the best bit of snooker, the World Championships. We're in the qualifiers at the moment. But before we get into talking about everything that's happened over the last 2 weeks, got to start by plugging Reddit, as ever, reddit.com/r/snooker, the perfect place to come and discuss all of the best bits of the season, what's coming up. We will have a prediction series with not cash prizes, Amazon voucher prizes coming up when the qualifiers are over. So head over there and join that, which will be up in the next week. So yeah, reddit.com/r/snooker, and on top of that, another quick plug, I'm running a half marathon in 5 days. Oof. It's on Good Friday, and I'm doing it in support of CALM, which is the Campaign Against Living Miserably, which is a campaign to stop male suicide, because male suicide is the biggest killer in men under the age of 45. So if you guys are willing to chuck a quid, a fiver, any money towards such a good cause, the link is in the description. If not, a share is just as good, and I would very much appreciate it. If you've listened to any of the past episodes, you know this is a very important cause to me. Thank you. So, on to the China Open. Last week when I left, we were just about to kickstart the China Open, and my God, what a strange first day it was. First couple of days, the first round was unbelievable. Before the tournament even properly started, but over in China, the last bit of qualifying, just to wrap it up, we had Mark Selby being knocked out before making it to the main tournament 6-3 by Craig Steadman, who is the world number 92. Oh, Mark, mate, it's not going well, is it? He's had an absolute shocker recently, and he's the two-time defending champion of the China Open. He's won it 3 out of the last 4 years before this last tournament, and the 1 year he didn't win it was because he didn't enter it. So it's normally his confidence booster going into the Worlds, because it's long form, it's his sort of thing, but he was just simply outplayed. I mean, Craig Steadman did play incredibly well, making large breaks, but Selby was off his best, as he has been the last season and a half. Going into the Worlds, it's a miracle he's got such high odds compared to a lot of players. He's at 9-1 to win the World Championship, according to Sky Bet, and I would not take those odds, not in the way he's playing at the moment. Him being knocked out in qualifying guaranteed Ronnie O'Sullivan the number 1 spot going into the Worlds, without Ronnie O'Sullivan having to play in the China Open, because obviously Mark Selby earned no money from the China Open. Although, obviously, going over to China, sponsors are paying him. A lot of it is media focused over there outside of the game. Therefore, you do earn money, material items, just by going over there. So it's not like he went over and cost himself a load of money. He has made profit out of it, but not directly ranking points or anything like that. A strange situation occurred, actually, as well in the moving on to the first round. Anthony McGill was Dr. Frame because he woke up 2 minutes before the match was set to begin against Nigel Bond. So apparently he thought it was like something out of a film where he got dressed in 60 seconds flat, sprinted to the lobby, shoes untied, shirt untucked, turned up, obviously Dr. Frame because you've got to be there ready for the matches. Still managed to come straight out the blocks, win the first frame, equalise 1-1, pretty much start again, ended up winning 6-4. So no great loss, but quite a strange situation that you don't get in a lot of sports, because a lot of sports, you have someone to do that for you. But Anthony McGill ended up waking up to a phone call saying, yo, where are you? You're supposed to be playing in 2 minutes. So, funny situation. I don't know, it's a more awkward situation. It sort of sums up my issue with a lot of the Chinese tournaments is Elliot Slesser. He was absolutely destroyed by Stuart Bingham, 6-0 in his first round match, but Elliot Slesser came out afterwards and said, fair play to Stuart, he would have beaten me any day of the week the way Stuart was playing and the lack of quality that Slesser was showing, but the crowd could not stay still. The crowd were moving, they were on their phones. It's an issue that happens a lot in the Chinese tournaments because, I don't know, it's something about the Chinese crowds watching snooker. They're not as respectful towards the play as a lot of the English and European and, well, everywhere else in the world. And the Chinese crowds always seem to be smaller unless it's a Chinese player playing or the final of an event. But that's just sort of something I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think, whether it's a cultural thing. Learning about the Chinese culture has been fascinating through snooker because there's a few members of the subreddit which have got connections to China, having possibly lived out there in the past. There's one bloke, and then there's others who simply use the Chinese social network. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a social network which a lot of the Chinese players are on and a lot of the Chinese fans talk about snooker on. Speaking of Stuart Bingham, he went on to make a 147 in the second round after defeating Elliot Slessor in his match against Peter Ebdon. I mean, a 147 is always incredible, but they're coming so commonplace now. You've got one almost every tournament, and I think it just shows the quality of snooker is skyrocketing. Now, the first round was very interesting. A lot of 4 top 16 talents out in the first round of such a big money event is an absolute shock, with Joe O'Connor overcoming John Higgins for the second time this season. And a reminder, Joe O'Connor has only been a pro for this season. To beat John Higgins twice in your rookie season is an incredible feat. Judd Trump went on to lose a deciding frame against the world number 57, Robbie Williams. Not that Robbie Williams. Legendary Thai player James Watana, he's had a bit of a resurgence this season. He's put in some good performances during a few tournaments. He knocked out Ding Junhui, who is really struggling, and Ding Junhui losing in the China Open first round. That is huge because obviously Ding is the biggest player over there. They believe it's only a matter of time before he wins the World Championships. I can't see it happening this season though. And Ding really needs to find his footing again. Obviously, he's just had a kid, so possibly this is distracting him from, I mean, reasonably so. If you're going to have a reason for not playing well, having a child and having to raise your second-born, might be his second kid, I think, is a good reason. Although that hasn't stopped Neil Robertson, who's just had another child as well. And defending world champion Mark Williams lost 6-4 to ex-world champion Ken Doherty. Doherty, again, resurgence this season. I believe that guarantees him a spot on the tour next season. He was only given this spot with a 2-year card alongside Jimmy White because he was such a legend of the sport and they believed he deserved a position on the tour if he wanted one. Which is fair, I'm totally for that. But Ken has taken that opportunity a lot better than Jimmy White has, and Ken Doherty has guaranteed himself a position on the tour next season by putting in some great performances and knocking out some truly good talent and showing that he still has what it takes to compete at the top level. Now, with all those upsets, by the second round, Neil Robertson was the highest ranking player left. And the semi-finals were a strange lineup. I don't think anyone could have predicted these. With Jack Lazowski against Scott Donaldson in one of them, which Lazowski won 10-1, I believe, and Neil Robertson versus Luca Bressel. And Bressel has not had a great season, but reaching the semi-finals of the China Open is huge. It's financially, ranking levels, and with the World Championships coming up, it's the perfect time to get as many ranking points as you can. So the final was an absolute demolition job by Neil Robertson, who took his third ranking event title of the season, beating Jack Lazowski 11-4 after being 8-2, I believe, up after the first session. That's the second ranking event final Lazowski's ever reached. I mean, the China Open is a great one to reach for your second ever, and it's the second loss to Neil Robertson, because his first ranking event final was the Riga Masters earlier this season, where he also lost to Neil Robertson. So that could be a little bit of a rivalry building up. Just sort of interesting to see how Lazowski has definitely calmed down this season. He's made progress with his game. He's reaching finals for the first time, and both times Neil Robertson has been there just to sort of stop him at the finish line. I believe Robertson is now one of the favourites to go far in the World Championships after winning 3 ranking events this season and just playing spectacularly the whole way through. I'm very impressed with the way he's turned his game around, especially after he's had a tough time of it a couple of years ago with his wife suffering with anxiety and depression, his addiction to video games. There's a lot behind the scenes that Neil Robertson has had to deal with, and it feels like now he's finally getting back on course, getting back on track. I'm incredibly glad for him. He deserves all the success he's got. He deserves all the future success he will receive, because he seems like a stand-up guy. Now, with that, we had our final seedings and final positions for the World Championships, which start on Saturday. God, I'm excited. Now, the odds. I thought I'd have a look at the odds for who... I checked Sky Bet, which are known for having lesser odds, to see who the bookies are favouring to win the World Championship. They have obvious favourite, Ronnie O'Sullivan, world number 1, absolutely destroying it this season, with 2-1 odds, and he's evens to reach the final, which shows just how much of a favourite he is, because the World Championships are so volatile, so unpredictable, and yet O'Sullivan evens to make the final. It's incredible. I don't think that's good value for money, personally, because I don't think he'll do it. I'm going to put myself out on the line here, in public, and say Ronnie O'Sullivan will not win the World Championships. It's his bogey tournament. He hasn't won it in a few years. Last year he got knocked out by Ali Carter, and you could see the emotion was getting to him. He cares too much. In a lot of these tournaments, he's the big man. He's the big fish in the small pond. He's Ronnie O'Sullivan. At the Worlds, he seems to get in his own head still. He has those problems that he had previously in his career. So I personally don't think he can overcome that. If I'm proven wrong, call me out on it. Personally, I think he might make it to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, but I don't think he'll win it again, possibly ever. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think O'Sullivan will go further? Do you think he'll win it? You tell me. Second favourite is Trump, 5-1 odds. Obviously, Masters champion, had a great season, has definitely progressed in his game, his mentality. He's not making the same silly mistakes he was a couple of years ago, even a couple of months ago. Very impressed with him this season. He is 5-1 odds, and Robertson follows him in third with 6-1 odds, so they're pretty similar, with Robertson obviously, like I said, having an incredible season and really improving, like I already said. And strangely enough, the fourth favourite to win the World Championships is still Mark Selby, which shows just how dominant he is in long-form matches. Again, he's 9-1 odds, though. I bet they are a lot longer odds than you ever would have got before on him. Very interesting to see Selby ahead of other players, just due to his track record at the World Championships. I'll be very interested to see how far Selby goes. I'd love to see him go far. I know he's a very tactical player. A lot of fans see him as a bit dull, a bit boring, but he is fascinating to watch. The way he gets in his opponent's head, the way the tactics work, gets my brain going. I know at least one other person who feels the same way I do. Fascinating, personally. So now we're on to the World Championship qualifiers. They are currently taking place right now as I speak. Actually, today it's just turned 1 o'clock on the 14th of April. So it's currently taking place the second round. The first round is all over. If you don't know, it's 3 rounds of best of 19s for the World Championship qualifiers, which means by the time a player has made it to the first round through qualification, they could have played a possible 57 frames, which is why it's so exhausting and why it's so impressive when a qualifier makes it far in the main tournament. There's only been 2, if you didn't know. Obviously, I assume a lot of you will already know this, being obviously snooker fans if you're listening to a snooker podcast. But there's only been 2 qualifiers to ever win the World Championships. Terry Griffiths in 1979 and Shaun Murphy in 2005. It's an incredible feat, like I said. The possibility of playing 57 frames before round 1 even begins is incredible. But just through round 1, we've had some great stories come up with Joe Swale being defeated 10-1 by the rookie, again, Joe O'Connor. Joe Swale has now dropped off of the tour and is considering retirement from the game, which is a shame, but he suffers with tinnitus, which I partially do. It's not to the same level as Joe Swale, but I can see how that must be infuriating. And he's also suffering with a few other health issues, I believe, just sort of ageing. But he's given his life to snooker. He dropped off in 2017 and regained his tour card through Q School, and he's come out and said, I don't fancy Q School again this season, and I might not return to the tour ever. So it'd be a shame to see Joe Swale leave the game. As a 2-time World Championship semi-finalist, he's proven himself to be one of the greatest players of all time. And that sounds like hyperbole, but it's not. Because if you look at how many people have ever picked up a snooker cue, if you look at me, if you look at anyone listening who's played snooker, you think, okay, so you've got to be in the 1% to become a pro ever. Okay, and then of all the pros of all time ever, you've got to be in, the top 5% to ever play in the World Championships. And to make it to a semi-final of a World Championships, you've got to be in the top 5-10% of that 5%. And to make it twice to a World Championship semi-finalist is something to be incredibly proud of. And when you look at these players who maybe, when someone says best snooker players of all time, you don't think Joe Swale. But you've got to respect the determination, the effort, and the years of craft that he has put into the game. And he deserves all the respect in the world. And I do hope to see him back. But if it's what's best for him, if it's what's best for his family, I would totally respect him not returning to the tour. He's not the only one to lose his tour place. Just through the first round, we have lost off the tour Peter Lines, obviously his son Oliver Lines still on the tour, Robin Hull, Billy Joe Castle, Chris Totten, Chen Sifan, Ashley Hugill, Lucas Kleckers, which is a shame. I always sort of had a bit of a soft spot for Lucas Kleckers, wanted to see him go far. Sanderson Lamb, Bassem El-Tahan, Ross Muir, Reece Clark, and Rory McLeod, who famously knocked out Judd Trump from the World Championships 2-3 years ago, but has now dropped off the tour. He's been struggling a lot, and he's off the tour now. Back to Q School for that list of players, and that's only after the first round. There'll be more to drop off soon that will be replaced by players from the Q School from different positions around snooker. There were 2 women fighting for what would be an historic place in the World Championship for a woman. Both lost in the first round, unfortunately. Rhiannon Evans, which is normally the name people think of when they think women's snooker, obviously huge name, the biggest name in women's snooker ever, was defeated 10-2 by Zhang Yong in the first round of the qualifiers. And the sort of up-and-comer, well, she's been around for a good few years, but the new girl, the new biggest name in women's snooker, On Yi. My sincere apologies if I mispronounce that. I'm not great with... I think she's from Hong Kong or Thailand. With names from that region. On Yi. She put up a much better performance. Still lost, but only 10-6, and it was to Alan McManus. She held her own. It was 4-all after the first session. So she should be very proud of herself, because McManus made it to the semi-finals of the China Open not a week ago. And to put up a performance and to push him to his limits is incredibly impressive. And it's pretty obvious to me that if any woman currently playing is going to make it to the World Championships or onto the main tour, or to make an influence in what is now primarily the men's game, it's going to be On Yi. Second round matches have started today, and they continue with the Doomsday, the day where we find out who's going to be taking on the top 16 on the 17th. So we're coming up to the business end of the World Championship qualifiers. The second round matches look great, and they include the likes of Jimmy White taking on Ali Carter, Ken Doherty taking on Scott Donaldson, Zhao Jingtong against Noppon Senkam, and Michael Giorgio taking on Peter Ebden. There's plenty of matches, fantastic ones, all ready for discussion on Reddit. check it out. Got a list of the matches going on there. Check Eurosport Player. I believe it's available to watch on. If not, if you're looking for matches that aren't being televised, that is also available on reddit.com/r/snooker. And in the final piece of news, Snooker 19, the official World Championship, World Snooker video game, first one since 2010, I think, a long time, is out on the 17th of April, which is in 3 days. There have been reports of a lot of them being sent out early. Unfortunately, I pre-ordered through Amazon and not through one of the other websites, so I haven't received mine. I will be buying it on... I've already pre-ordered on PS4. I believe I will buy it on Steam as well when it's released, and I will either be streaming it or recording a Let's Play. So keep an eye out for that. If there's any other content you'd like to see, whether it be online matches or a road to the Crucible series, let me know, and I will do that. And that is the last 2 weeks summed up pretty well in 21 minutes. Pretty fast-paced podcast this week, but there has been a lot, and there's still a lot to come, because by this time next week, when I come to record again, the World Championships will have begun. And I would have run a half marathon, again, link in the description. If you don't know my past, half marathon is huge for me, because I used to be 19 stone, I used to be obese. I am now floating around 13 stone. It's my cherry on top of weight loss and health and mental health change in my life is to run this half marathon. So, and I thought, if I'm going to do this, don't just do it for selfish reasons. Do it to raise money for such a great cause. Calm is really near and dear to my heart. It's something I love, is Calm. The campaign against living miserably. Check it out, and if you can, throw a couple of quid. The link is in the description, and I would very much appreciate it. I believe we're at £180 of my £250 goal, so we're almost there. This Friday, I'll be running. Check my Twitter for updates. I will post a picture on the day and updates on how badly I do it. I went into pretty hardcore training for a while. I did run a half marathon in training, and then I sort of dropped off. And yeah, so this could be interesting. Either way, I will let you guys know how that goes next week, and we will also look ahead to the World Championships. Exciting times for snooker fans, and I will see you guys next week.